Nicolai, welcome to Devoxx UK.
Thank you
How
very much.
How are you finding it?
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a great place and it's good weather.
Yeah, we ordered the sun, as Mark mentioned in the keynote today, which you missed.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, cool. So I know you're writing a book. You're giving a talk tomorrow, and you've been giving a lot of talks on Java.
Yeah.
You have blog posts and you do newsletters, and you're extremely active in the Java ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about some of these things.
Yeah, as I said,
maybe the book.
As I said, the book is done. It's going to be in production. You can get it. You can already buy the electronic version of it, and it goes into production. It is in production, which means you can get a dead tree version somewhere next couple of weeks. And as you said, I do all kinds of things. Although I've been on holiday recently, and since then I had a hard time to actually do things again. Now I'm home. I work from home a lot, and now the sun is out a lot during the day, and so I find myself sitting on the balcony reading much more than I actually should. Okay. But I'm close to getting back to work, really.
Okay, sounds good. So what have you been following up on? I'm sure you had to keep up to date with all of the changes that's been happening in the Java ecosystem, right? There's quite a few of them, and maybe you can enumerate some of them and tell us a bit more about it.
So I think the big change in every release has the big feature, right? So Java 8 had lambdas and streams, and Java 9 had the module system, and Java 10, well, it has var, but I think the more relevant part of Java 10, or it's a representative of the new model of Java, right? It's a representative because it came out after 6 months, and it will be obsolete within 6 months.
Yeah.
It has no long-term support to speak of, and it has only a very few changes because it was so close to the last release. And I think that's the biggest change after the module system. The biggest change that we're seeing now is actually not a technical change yet. There are big technical changes lined up, like value types, for example. Mm-hmm. But the biggest change at this very moment in this year and maybe the next year is the recycling and the long-term support changes. I guess it's more like a cultural change that we as a community have to adapt to and have to see how to make it work for us.
Yeah, it's like creating and creation and innovation, right?
Yeah,
like delivering faster, moving faster.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point. So as I said, a new Java release every 6 months, and then at first Oracle said, over a given time period, let's say over 3 years, the total amount of innovation will not be larger than earlier. You could not say 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the same changes happen in 10 to 11, 12, 13. That would be ridiculous. So we get over the same stretch of time, we get the same amount of innovation. By now, I'm not that sure anymore, because at the same time, the JDK developers kind of tip the balance a little bit between stability and compatibility on the one hand and evolution on the other hand. And I think they're moving a little bit more towards, they're definitely moving a little bit more towards evolving the language a little faster and sacrificing some aspects of stability to that end. And I think that's a fair exchange, because seriously, I didn't even notice, when I started programming, it was Java 5. And then later in university it was Java 6, and my first job it was Java 7, and I didn't even know that these were different Javas, because there were so little changes. Okay, I was also a beginner, but still there were so little changes. I didn't even notice that the language evolved.
Sure.
And that was like a span of 10 years. Yeah. And then Java 8 came out, and I was like, wow, so it does change. I didn't know that. And that's great, and that should continue to happen. So I'm okay with it picking up a little bit more speed, and also maybe making it a little tougher to make things work.
Sure. Well, there's another change in that as well, right? With it's not just a 6 months release cadence. There's another change, the LTS and non-LTS releases. So what's your take on that? What's what are the different things you want to share with us on that?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to do is definitely to point out what exactly is going to happen. So we get every 6 months we get a new Java version. What exactly do we get? Oracle is going to develop their code, and they're going to show their changes in the Open JDK, in the open repositories.
Sure.
And they will build for Java 10 you can download Oracle JDK as an Open JDK. But for Java 11, well, you can still download the Oracle JDK, but you will not be able to use it in production. At least the license tells you not to. So the idea is that Oracle JDK becomes a proprietary let's just say a commercial variant of the JDK, purely commercial variant. So if you're not paying Oracle for the JDK, you're not going to use it, which is in line with how, for example, Zulu works. You have to pay them to use the JDK. That makes a lot of sense. At the same time, they will have the Open JDK being freely available, which I think is great, because that's one where all the code is proper free code, in the sense of freedom, also in the sense of beer. So So I appreciate that we have a proper open source solution that is on par with Oracle JDK, because the technical differences between the two
is disappearing. In fact, with open sourcing of quite a few components.
Yes.
And other things that they have done. So I mean, if you see in a nutshell, individual developers are not so affected by it. Like, people are using it as a learning tool or hobbyist or other things, but commercial outfits or organizations that use or will be using Oracle JDK starting 9 or starting 10 will be affected by the LTS non-LTS story.
In the beginning,
9 actually, not 10.
Yeah, so 9 is already obsolete, right? So you cannot even maybe you can download in some archives, but you really shouldn't, because there are no more fixes coming out.
Sure.
At least not from Oracle. And I see nobody else having a big interest in maintaining 9 per se. But others picked up the slack, basically, the opportunity that Oracle gave by saying, look, because by now before Oracle JDK was kind of the default. And now by Oracle forcing the community to find something new, other vendors have it easier to say, look, we're open, or we are having our own long-term support versions of these releases. And so you will see a little more of that, and more people will be aware of that and will use that. But in the beginning, it looked like you would have to pay someone, or you would have to jump every 6 months when when Oracle releases the new OpenJDK.
Sure. I mean, talk about that. Basically, there's a niche market created by this whole change of release cycle, isn't it? Like, the ones who are watching for that market will notice that the moment the non-LTS releases expire, there is an opportunity for them to offer support.
Yes.
On different types of returns, right? Plus, we have the Adopt Open JDK, which can step in. Of course, it's not written in stone, and we don't know what the roadmap there is. But the intention is there to fill the gaps in these opportunities.
I wanted to point that out. That's awesome. Like, that the Adopt Open JDK project. So what they're trying to do, they're building basically from the JDK Open JDK code base, building the entire pipeline with the TCK, which means you can call it actually Java, and then you can release these binaries. And they're not only having the build farm set up, now I wouldn't say they promised yet, but they're moving towards the promise to actually have their own long-term support releases. Sure. I guess many will align with Oracle's having JDK 11 as the first long-term support, and then maybe we get, like, I heard the number floating around, like up to 4 years maybe of support for 11, and then that means there's 1 year overlap with 17, which will be the next LTS, and that would be plain awesome. So there's a lot of engineering work in making all these, in getting patches into 11, not now. Well, now 11 is not even out, or not next year, but a couple years down the road, when 11 is kind of old and a lot of changes happen to the JVM, then applying these patches is not trivial. It's actual work, and it's great if that were someone to do for free.
So that was the discussion, that some of these decisions that we now have to take on as end users or developers, they appear something now, and when we label it, but it's quite possible that we need to just wait in time and see how it pans out, and it'll pick up momentum based on whatever happens with the reaction in the community. So some decisions, of course, when you look at it, you say, oh, this is likely where it's going to go, but some decisions or you don't know, but then maybe it's better to wait and see how things are going to go, because the niche market, if someone taps into it, and then organizations or communities like Adopt Open JDK come in, or companies come in and say, okay, LTS stops here, we're going to give you support from here to here, and then you're back into the next LTS, so you're safe. And then if something like that happens, then that decision on the hindsight wasn't such a bad decision.
True.
So let's wait and see where that goes.
Yeah, definitely.
So if I had to ask you to pick a couple of, or at least one pro and one con from the speed of delivery or release 6 months release cadence, and a pro and a con from the LTS non-LTS, what would be the things you would pick? So you have like 4 things, like one pro, one con, one pro, one con.
I do the application trick. I give you a con that's not really a con for the LTS release. So sorry, not for the LTS, for the release cadence. Cadence. So at first it looks like it's a lot more work. If you're deploying your own software, then that's kind of fine, right? You can pick the version you want, and you have an incentive to stay kind of up to date. But that part is not that problematic. But for people, as soon as you start using libraries, which everybody does, or if you're providing these libraries, or if you're providing software that your customer deploys, you suddenly have a wider range of versions to match, to be able to run on that.
Is much bigger.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what the matrix is, much bigger, and we have to get used to that matrix. I think many projects just focus on, they have one release. They have Java 8 baseline, so they're working on, they're built against Java 8, and they promise Java 8 and everything is fine. And they don't really concern themselves with building on 9 or 10, or actually both, and maybe the 11 already early access builds. That's still rare, but I think we have to go there, because now we have maybe, like, if you want to cover 5 years worth of Java, you have to cover 10 versions.
So that's a con that's kind of a pro in the long run.
I mean, it's a con that you have to do this, but I think it's a
necessary
pro that
evil, as we say sometimes.
Yeah, exactly, and it teaches us, if it hurts, do it more often. It teaches us skills that we didn't have. So far, it's a little bit complicated. Not all the tools make it that easy to have the different Java versions at the same time. And I guess the tools will catch up, our skills will catch up, and I think in a couple of years we'll be wondering, why was it so complicated? Why did I only have one build? Now I have like
what were we complaining about?
Yeah, exactly. Also puts pressure on build times, for example. If your build takes like 2 hours, and then you have like on 10 different Java builds, then you either have a lot of machines or you wait 20 hours for the result. None of that is optimal. So you have another positive pressure on keeping your build times and your test times down, and so that's a good thing.
So on the LTS front, what would you...
that was the con, right? That was the con I hit, that sneak a pro by you. Now I want to get the actual pro.
Yeah, the actual pro of the...
We'll see more cool things earlier. That's a good thing. I like that.
Faster, moving faster, innovations displayed faster, exhibited faster. You can play around with it faster. I mean, you also have the early access releases. But it's still good to see a stable release with the features finalized.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Because you'll not get anyone, like developers tend to like the new releases because they like using new features, but I think you'll have a hard time sneaking an EA release by your manager. So but if Java 10 comes out, it's like it's a real release, then
it's a stable release, then it's a general access availability release.
Exactly.
Then it's going to be...
And to talk about LTS, nobody at the moment looks like they're giving long-term support for Java 10, but that does not make Java 10 like a minor upgrade or something. It's just as stable as all the other JDK releases. That doesn't mean that 10.0 or 11.0 might not have bugs, but the point is, it's not like 10 just gets thrown out there and 12 will just get thrown out there. Only 11 and 17 are real releases. So these releases are, technically, they're all, from technological point of view, they are the same. Just the promised support differs between 10 and 11, because you most likely don't get any for 10, but you will get for 11. So which is the pro and con of the
LTS?
Yeah, I think the con is that this was poorly communicated. I think still many people don't know, and that
it's not aligning with an LTS terminology used with other tech stack. Is it aligning with the Linux LTS?
Oh, I don't know much of the details there, but actually my impression is that actually yes, it does.
Okay,
but it's just different from what we used.
Okay. No, it's just the communication aspect of it.
Yeah, because we were used, like when Oracle said 11 was going to be LTS, I guess people assumed, I did, that it's going to be LTS like Java 8 is LTS, so I can just use that JDK. But now it's like, yes, it's LTS if you pay Oracle for it. That's kind of like a big if. And I think that was not and still is not communicated in the with the clearness and the clarity and the force it has to, because it has to reach everybody as soon as possible. I mean, we're in this at the moment, and people still don't know about it. People are still on 8 and not sure what's going to happen. And 8 runs out, public support by Oracle runs out in January. So there's not much room for people finding their way to this information. And I think that the con is that this was not as aggressively communicated as would have been necessary to reach a much larger amount of the community. I still give every training and every talk I start with these 3 things. The release cadence, OpenJDK, Oracle JDK, and LTS, and a little bit of the Java client roadmap. And many people don't know. And I think that is unnecessary. So about the pro, I'm more a developer kind of guy, so I'm not so involved in paying someone for support and stuff. So I cannot really...
kind of relate to that,
So I'm not sure, but I cannot say something specific about that. But I can say, as a proponent of free software, if OpenJDK indeed does promise that they will give long-term support for certain releases, and then they actually fulfill that promise, that would be just awesome, because that means now there's a proper free, in the sense of freedom and beer, proper free version of the OpenJDK that is available for everybody.
I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier about the niche market thing. I mean, this indirectly kind of opens up that doorway for the ones who are watching, the value-added service providers in this space, to step in, and also communities like the OpenJDK community to step in and give the additional support when LTS versions run out of support, and then step in, and so they fill the gaps that there are between LTS to LTS versions. So I mean, that's a visible pro already.
And I think the Java community is kind of spoiled, right? We're used to getting everything for free. We get great tools, we get great JVM itself, and great libraries and frameworks.
There's no such thing as free lunch. It all comes with the price.
Well, it has been for us, right? I mean, most of the software that I built never paid for anything really, and that maybe it would also be a positive change if we realize that maybe that's not the ideal way to build software. Maybe we should occasionally pay someone who develops our stuff, and a good way to start would maybe be adopt OpenJDK, that you think like, I'm happy that these guys provide me with a service that I otherwise have to pay tens of thousands of euros for a company. You know, maybe I can find it in me to give them a couple hundreds a year or something.
Or you can contribute to the OpenJDK project by just stepping in and helping with the farm. Or if you have an AWS or a machine to lend, you can just make it a Jenkins slave, and there you go, you contributed to the community.
That's a good thing.
You've mentioned a lot of the stuff we just talked about, the release cycle, the release cadence, and the LTS, and many other things in your blog posts and newsletters, and you also give talks, and you're going to be giving a talk tomorrow. So how do we get to that? Is that there's a website for that?
Not going to tell you.
You're not going to tell that. You're not going to share that with us.
No, it's a secret.
Okay.
Don't go to codefx.org, because nothing of what we just said is there. That's a secret. Yes, don't go there.
Cool. All right, Nicolai, pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much,
for your talk tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Have a good time.
Thank you.
Bye.